I am a living Rishi for the Western Hemisphere, sent into Sedona. I have arrived, not knowing anyone here. The mission is manyfold, but at the highest level of this miraculous mission is to bring 7 sovereign souls into their full enlightenment in the next 2 years. This is the purpose of this Lotus Heart Fellowship. The greater mission is to bring 12 sovereign enlightened souls into their full purpose of mastery within the next 5 to 7 years. And so marvel with considerable gratitude, if you will, the perfection of the divine plan that has been set into the motion for thousands of years, that sends a living Rishi into Sedona, precisely when Sedona needs it most, to uplift all, to serve all. You see, everyone, everything. But feel in your heart of hearts, as you feel your own path of divine mandate, of higher purpose, how best can you truly serve? And imagine the profound phenomena of change that Sedona will move through when 12 enlightened beings are in residence here. There's such knowing with this that I give you this jewel to contemplate over the coming days, over the coming weeks. Because so much of the concerns about Sedona, her future, will so readily be uplifted by the illumination of 12 enlightened master beings who are here to serve everyone and everything. We will not be out in the open. But now you know this perfection of the divine plan that is already set into motion. So sit with it for just a few moments, if you will, inwardly. I am Rishi of the Western Hemisphere, my dear ones. I am Rishi of all seekers and initiates globally. I am Sedona's Rishi. I am your Rishi. I came to Sedona first in 1990, and I unified all the vortices then, unified them. I was on mission. Opened the first planetary corridor then, here. And now I'm back to consummate what was begun. So many miracles can unfold from this little nucleus, this little group starseed, if you will, this little bud of a lotus that will flower in terms of physical manifestations here in Sedona. I never second guess God. I never second guess the divine. But I am like a child in a candy store, waiting for that taste of sweetness on my tongue. Do you see? I know that miracles will unfold. I know that it is beyond the thinking mind, which I haven't used in some 30 years now. My first foray to Sedona blew it to smithereens. Shattered it all. Literally shattered it all. Just shattered it. Oh, lovely ones. I went through Yogic Death in 2003 and consciously left the body. Coming back in the body was a 3-day process. But the reason why I wish to share this with you is perhaps you hear stories of near-death experiences and going through the tunnel and things of that nature. Yes? Yes? Because of the pillar of light meditation, there was no tunnel necessary whatsoever. The spirit of this incarnation slipped like silk from this body in pure grace. Immediate God consciousness, still myself, my unique self, my individuality, if you will, my sovereign self. No change of any kind, but I had left the body. And the body mechanisms began to cease and shut down. And so the heart stopped, the lungs stopped, it all stopped. The body had finished its purpose for this incarnation. I had fulfilled everything that I had requested of myself. You see, this is what we do. Our souls set forth our soul contracts. And I had been through all the thick and thin and all the fiery brimstone, everything that this life has had to offer. And there I was, hoovering around my body. Unchanged consciousness, but free of the body. This somewhat crude vessel that we're given, at least for this fifth chain of earth existence, but we're moving into the seventh now. The seventh wheel, the seventh chain, the seventh round, which is what anchoring that Shambhala citadel here in Sedona has to do with. Yeah. But then the Logos Melchizedek, the Christ Universal, beseeched me to gather myself and re-enter the body. Loved one, I said yes. So for those of you who sometimes feel as though you don't want to be here, I'll bet that love will win. It won. And it was a 3-day process to come back into the body. 3-day process to come back into the body. And I was given the grace of help to reacclimate. So I did receive a period of time here in Arizona at the Boulders Resort. One of my benefactors provided a villa. My daughter accompanied me. Of course, we began to soul merge and initiate every single healer at the Boulder Spa. And they began to congregate in my villa in the evenings. And then the very beloved master teacher, dear one, of the Course of Miracles, yes, master teacher Charles Anderson, they just call him dear one, flew me to him, where I sat for another month, just acclimating. And when I walked into his gathering of souls there, he probably had some 10,000 or so followers at the time, and I don't know how many were there, quite a few. He just said, well, her heart is mostly reconstructed now. As I came in. And there were times when I could not tell if I was walking or not. And I received such love and help and grace and mercy. And even my father flew in. My father flew in to assist. And we all stayed in what was once the governor's mansion of the state of Wisconsin, which was part of the Course of Miracles place, I guess, there in the Wisconsin Dells is where it is, actually. And there was this Rishi coming back into the body after yogic death, with my father there to help and assist. Some years earlier, he became one of my initiates. Began to take initiation, came to the teachings and the gatherings and so forth. But because we were from the Patton family, and Master Teacher Charles was the same age of my father at the time, and just adored General Patton. They would sit in their rockers on the front porch of this huge Victorian governor's mansion and just share and reminisce nostalgically, because they were the only ones that were in their 80s at the time. Do you see? But I just want you to see how there was nothing left of me in the humanity. And the caring, containing just came in and provided. And so by the end of the 1 month sabbatical, with this gracious, generous master teacher who just gave me the containment to go through this. And we had been in touch with one another for some years. Every so often he would send me a group of his devotees or students. He'd say, I can't do nothing with this batch, see what you can do. He'd send 20 or 30 over my direction. And do you see? But you can see how fluid this can be when the walls come down. When all the walls come down. So I sit before you, having gone through yogic death, having agreed to come back in the body, even though I had earned my exit. Imagine coming back in on purpose, fully knowing what you're in for. But love one, you see, love one. And actually, Master Teacher Charles, he shared a little story. He said, I went through my awakening and I thought I had lost my mind. He said, sometimes I just sat under my table, just in God absorption. And he said, I taught for 3 years to nobody. Just in his kitchen, letting the divine flow, with no human audience there at all. Wow. So, but it was a beautiful thing. You know, he had entertained me stepping into his place with the Course of Miracles globally, internationally, because he knew, and it was only a couple of years later he passed away. But I said, I'm sorry, dear one. After Course of Miracles, then you come to Rishima. Then you come to Rishima. Then you come. Someone will nurture your group and shepherd your group, and you will pass your mantle to someone, if not many. You've already passed your mantle to many, you see. And so I will be leaving the flesh consciously this time. And some of you will bear witness to when I go. And I will be passing my mantle to you. And all of my wisdom will be ever present for you to drink from whenever you need it. because I have drunken the nectar of all the masters. Yes, all of them. Who among you might have something to say, or anything you might want to ask of this old granny? This Granny Ma. Maybe I should change my name to Granny Ma. Anyone? Here's your chance. Yes, beloved, and you are Natalie. How do you say it, Natalia? Natalia. Welcome. Oh, welcome. Speak up just a bit so old Granny can hear.
I don't know your history, full history, but so when was that moment of enlightenment? Because it was, if you're saying Yogic Death was just firing on that.
Yes, it was. Enlightenment happened in Sarasota, Florida, in the mid-90s. And back long, long ago, I offered what was called gatherings of light all over the world. Anywhere 1,000, 5,000 people coming in at a time. And so for this Rishima, it was the avatar Satya Sai Baba. Very powerful force. And I have taken tremendous voltage. Tremendous voltage. But it was he who seeded Avatar, all 12, into my heart. And I never again entered back into astral or ego or the illusion of separation. So the book that I have just completed is dedicated to the avatars of origin. And I have given you a little snippet, a little introduction to the avatars of origin in your Lotus Heart Fellowship folder. And there's enough in there to bring you jewel upon jewel upon jewel on your path for at least a year, if not a lifetime. Yes. I remember yesterday when you became blazing hot, you were sweating.
I know, I'm sweating.
You're sweating now because purifying is happening, darling. Purifying is happening, darling. And so through this power of avatar initiation, I have levitated for sustained periods of time, quite unintentionally, quite involuntarily. No control over it. Forceful Kundalini, though, I have shared it, caused snot to blow out of my nose, and it just flung everywhere, all over myself. A little graphic reality. So we keep it real, yes? Keep it real. But what I promise you is I will help you as much as you allow yourself to be helped. Because there is no greater legacy for your lifetime to dedicate it to than your enlightenment. You are the hope of future generations. And you think of all the children being born into hardship and how many of them aren't even wanted so much? Accidental pregnancies and all of that. And what the difference is now of having an enlightened mother and an enlightened grandmother, which my family honors. I have a big family, large. And they have an enlightened mother and an enlightened grandmother. You have an enlightened rishi sitting before you. They don't care. They have mom. They got mom and grandma and great grandma. I don't know if I've come full circle to answer your question, darling.
Not quite yet.
So let's have her repeat her question.
I'm started on the process. So, my understanding is you've been initiated into enlightenment. Is that a correct statement?
Not enough. I reached, what really triggered it all, actually, where it began, was a cancer diagnosis. Terminal. And I had my daughter then, who's 37 now, was 2 years old. And I had 2 other children as well. And that was a healing process. And people respond to these challenges differently. I responded to it with will and all the power I could summon. Pure will. And a fair amount of defiance of death. So interesting how enlightenment began with the defiance of death. And then the ego died. And then I surrendered the body to yogic death. Interesting, isn't it? That this talk about how did enlightenment take place, I will begin with a talk about death. Because I was told by the doctors and everything my death was imminent, I should put my affairs in order. And I defied it. I did not do the radiation therapies and so forth at the time. I defied it. I also did not tell my husband at the time. I told no one about my diagnosis. No one knew but my doctor. So I defied it. And then I came to Sedona. Then I came to Sedona. And I left 4 years later in complete remission. And many things were mastered during my will to live, because I couldn't bear the thought of leaving my little daughter without a mother. So we're getting very human here. And one could say that perhaps it was just my time. But what I'm saying to you, that other masters have said, yes, we each have a time, a sacred count, for when your enlightenment is going to happen. You know, no matter what, it will just set up. Well, that was my setup. That was my setup. And so while I was here back then, it just all blew open. God consciousness, deity, the silent watcher, the time lords, logos, logos of universes, logos of stars. It gradually dropped down to ascended masters. So I never began by channeling a master or anything like that. And so I very much want you to grasp that this gift right now of how enlightenment is possible now, it's going to be a top-down heavenly process of initiation. It's not moving upward from your struggles. Even though your struggles may be designed to make you reach. So in my greatest terror of leaving my kids alone, yes, leaving them without their mom, I raged. And next thing I knew, I found myself in Sedona. And I trained many healers while I was here in those beginning years. And yet what truly began to happen is that I got sick and tired and disgusted of myself. Period. Sick and tired and fed up with suffering. Just fed up with drama, fed up with suffering, just done. 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 Do you see? So I got a divorce from attachment. I realized that if I wanted to be done with suffering, I had to sever the ties with attachment, all attachment. So during my years, my early years here in Sedona, that was the activity, severing every attachment, all of them, all of them. So there was nothing left but divine desire. No desire for myself, no desire for anything, just divine desire. No ego desire. There was nothing left of me to want anything. And so I realized that desire is the mother of attachment. But attachments are the many fathers of suffering. I hope you receive the deep meaning there. So if desiring that which you already are, and that which you already have, and that which already is the snake pit of illusion, then surely suffering is its many bastards. So, ego desire is the mother of attachment. Attachments are the many fathers of suffering. And so then it is up to you. Have you suffered enough? Have you had enough yet? Because if you suffer, if you find yourself an attention point, then you must be honest about where your attachment lies. That's all. Shortly thereafter came Sarasota. So, going into, I knew I had a big group coming in from all over the world. Huge hall and so on. Thousands of people came in to see the Rishi Mother. And I was in this preparing myself for divine union. I didn't know what it was. I didn't have a framework intellectually for it. I just knew that I was preparing myself. And it was like I was a bride. And I knew I was going to get married. It had a sense of it like that. It doesn't matter whether you're male or female. And so for weeks, when I bathed, I knew I was bathing to prepare myself for divine union. And I just was in this quietude, even though I was busy on the outside and I had a house full of children and duties and all of this. But I was preparing myself to walk down the aisle to get married. That's how it was for me. That's how it was for me. And as I recall, this gathering of light, this retreat was 7 days probably. And it was on the third day that Satya Sai came in, said, "You're done." And it was a majesty of permanent abidance in the heart of the central sun, permanent. It was immersion that was electrifying. I was unable to speak for 3 days then. I couldn't walk. I had to be helped in and out. And for the 3 days that followed, they just sat me there, and others were teaching, facilitating, and so on, but the place exploded, I have to say. So it will be unique for you, I'm sure. You just have to ask, have you suffered enough? Have you driven yourself in the cosmic blender enough? Have you put yourself in crazy land enough? Are you done? Are you done with it yet? Today we're going to deepen, we're going to quicken, we're going to elevate, and we are going to transform. For over 3 decades, throughout the process of awakening
and moving through the thresholds of enlightenment and the embodiment of mastery. I've always had the inner knowing that we were divinely designed to manifest the supergenius state, the highest levels of the quickening of time for human expression, for human incarnation, that imparts the transmission of light to elevate, to awaken, to ignite the inborn godhood that has always been present within our DNA. And so this ignition, this awakening, this sparking into manifestation, a higher DNA, the 12-strand DNA, is something that I am dedicating much of my focus and my own personal inner transformation to attain in this lifetime. And so people speak of realization, self-realization, they speak of enlightenment. But what I'm really wanting to impart to you is the reality of embodied mastery. The state of effortless enlightenment through which divine love and service just naturally outpour, effortlessly outpour. Sort of the brimming over of your love and light, it just effortlessly outpour. And yet it is that cellular awakening, the DNA awakening, that is also so important. So I invite you to close your eyes, feel your heart of heart, and touch within yourself the innermost places within you where you already know, you sense, you desire to live from your divine potential, to no longer be bound and entrapped whatsoever in a time-bound existence, to free the light, the kundalini, the soma, the soul, to free your godhood, your inner logos, to be made manifest. And so closing your eyes and feel that quickening of divine anticipation. And you see and sense and vision your pillar of light. As we begin this transmission, meditation, activation, for igniting the 12-strand DNA, which begins to flower the supergenius of our greatest potential as human beings. And so as we align and call forth Christ consciousness, we align and call forth the Godhood that is our inherent being. And as we truly invoke into our physical reality the archetypes of God consciousness, the avatars of God consciousness, the master self, and the awakening of the DNA that sparks into reality the supergenius of the inner avatar, the supergenius of your master self. And as you feel my words resonate, as you feel all the promises and prayers, the meditations since the beginning of time itself, that have always known that we would transform, that we would become multi-dimensional, even as we lived an impeccable expression of mastery through human embodiment. It is possible, it is destined, and it is divinely decreed. Breathe and begin to sense the permeation of divine light. And with each exhalation, allow the penetration of divine light to deepen within your being. It is a subtle igniting. It is a heart-centered reception of the power of God consciousness that does indeed factually ignite the 12-strand DNA of the super-genius state of enlightenment. Transmission from on high, O dear ones, flowing to you. And perhaps you can sense the joy because your heart knows that this is indeed your birthright. It has been the promise since the ancient of days for our awakening to attain a zenith of divine potential. For as this awakening begins, and as one by one, as 12 by 12, and as multiples of 12 begin to move throughout the great wave awakening that is touching initiates all over the world, we become the 144. We then become the 144,000 of celestial promise that attains that tipping point of the awakened DNA that begins to change the very nature of human existence on this planet. And as Master Jesus has said, and all these things I have done, ye shall do. And all the higher guidance and messages of hope and truth and awakening that we have received from all of the enlightened masters throughout time, all the prophets and the saints and the rishis. Our divine humanity has always been flowering. And yet we are now in a time of direct dynamic activation. The divine decree that elicits the igniting of the higher dimensions of the human DNA. And already you might feel the permeation of transmission as you joyously welcome divine light into body, mind, and soul. As you begin to envision yourself free of limitation, full of divine light, merciful of compassion, powerful of action. All these things that truly is the awakened avatar that begins as the 12-strand DNA is indeed ignited. Receive transmission. Imagine your cells awakening your molecules. And as you hold the light of your third eye in awakening, begin to envision, to imagine your DNA. It is a living language of light that is continually outpouring consciousness throughout your body. And it is the awakened DNA that also begins to ignite the sacred glands of the enlightened endocrine system. The constant flow of prana, the intake of solar prana, the upsweep of kundalini, and the sacred amrit of the holy soma of the sacred endocrine system. As you feel this subtle nectar, this holy amrit, be saturated. Allow that wellspring within you, that infinite divinity, to flow. Trust your experience. For your mastery is indeed in the making. And the inner avatar within is awakening. For the promise of the Ancient of Days is upon you. Oh, hearken ye, chelas of light. The awakening of your inner avatar lies within your very DNA. So activation, permeation, igniting light is what we of the Brotherhood of Light offer you. Feel, sense, receive. Holding in thy eyes light, the visioning of your DNA, and allow your third eye to connect with your DNA as you begin to ignite and vision forth the divine DNA that is your birthright. The divine spiral, if you will, of the lines and force that are the Alpha and the Omega, and all the interconnecting lines of force that form that spiral of light that is the divine DNA. Vision it forth. And receiving light into your third eye. Receiving light into your heart of hearts. As we joyously welcome accelerated transformation. DNA awakening. And light streaming in. To permeate and awakening your DNA. To spark limitless health and well-being, super genius intelligence, health and vitality, and holding thy eye in the light to receive divine vision for the awakening of your DNA. The 12-strand DNA that makes manifest the avatar of the divine prototype for our humanity. Allowing your experience for this transmittal of divine light. trusting, receiving, igniting. Lovingly embracing your God inherent DNA. Permeation. Blessing.